Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Predictions and Speculation. This is for Ahsoka episode 6. We're going to dive into everything we think could possibly happen. Next episode, will we finally get Thrawn? Will we make it to the other galaxy? Is Hera going to be a part of this show? What's Ahsoka's role moving forward? We're going to get into all of that stuff in this video. Make sure you're hitting that like button and you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers, like right around the corner. If you haven't given us a sub, make sure you do so. Hit that like button so that we can interact with more Star Wars fans. Help us get to about 40 likes on this video. Comment below, let us know your theories. And if you would like to interact with us directly on a Star Wars Ahsoka themed video, you can join our lives every single Tuesday immediately after the show, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. We will be discussing all things Ahsoka, so we will be going live next week for Ahsoka episode 6. Make sure to join us then. All right, let's get into Ahsoka episode 6. We haven't seen half the plot in 2 episodes for the show. Episode 4 ends with Shin, Baylan, Sabine, and Morgan all getting in the Eye of Sion and blasting off to that other galaxy. We haven't seen them since. The last episode deals 95% is mostly Ahsoka's story. And then we also get Hera, Jason, and Carson looking for Ahsoka. So we're going to dive back into what we think could continue the story of Sabine, who has basically been a co-lead in this show as she and the main bad guys are hunting for Thrawn. Sanak, give me kind of some of your ideas here for where we think we're going to be going with Sabine and the villain plot in next episode.
I mean, where we left him last was Sabine being convinced by Baylan kind of reading her mind and her feelings. She's been always described as a very chaotic, explosive character, not in just her art, but her personality. But Rebels era her was a lot more in control of that, or at least she subdued a lot of that until season 3 and 4, until she started, having her own reckoning with it. And then, Balin, after being threatened by Sabine to destroy the star map, the pathway to Peridia being forgotten forever, at least for the most part, because Star Wars always has, escape routes for stories to still continue if they really need to. She got convinced, right? Do it for Ezra. And I know I feel your emotions coming off palpably that your master didn't let you go save your family. Your whole family is dead. The Wrens as a clan are gone. Obviously, Night of a Thousand Tears has been a concept that The Mandalorian introduced, partially because Favreau's take on The Mandalorian and Filoni's take on Mandalorians already, with the Lucas backing of the idea, are very two almost contrasting ideas, but they made it work, and now Filoni's kind of jutting back to his own lane, the kind of storytelling that he likes, and he's taking a concept that Favreau has kind of established to soft reset a lot of these Mandalorians, and he's adding in more of like the Filoni isms, like there's some really cool backstory here. There's something that can really motivate and affect our characters from here. So, when she's on that bridge being held by Shin, Morgan is just so happy and confident. Balin is, not anxious, but why wouldn't you have any sort of feeling of like a lot of things are happening right now that even me as a Jedi who survived the purge isn't necessarily ready for? Like they're all ready for a journey that truly they're not ready for. And Sabine's been spurred on to make this decision to really allow these villains to have their first major victory in the show. And what does that mean for her? I mean, I think it means that we're still, like I said in the last predictions, dealing with this journey. It would be very easy for Filoni to just drop them into this new galaxy, and we just see the ship come out of hyperspace for like maybe a couple seconds of them as they're exiting out of hyperspace. But we've already done that with an Ahsoka. We've done that with other characters in other shows. To make this really special, I think you need to make it feel weightier, meatier, just different. Like this is a hyperspace concept that has been used before in Legends, but they didn't really describe like, oh, how the Yuzan Vong made their jump to our galaxy. Sonoma Sakat is a traveling planet, so that kind of made things a little bit simpler. This is people using tech, using Night Sister magic, using ancient prophecies that are known by many Force beings to jump to a different galaxy because apparently there's a connection there. And that's apparently because of the Purgle where Thrawn and Ezra are. How could Sabine not take that choice with how much she's lost, with how much she's been manipulated? But are we gonna just let her just like ignore that until she sees Ezra? No, I don't think so. We need her to continue developing that interesting rapport that she almost already has in just a few words with Balin mostly talking. She feels like she's already got some chemistry there. Everything with Shin so far, while awesome, like don't get me wrong, I love lightsaber fights. I love people hating each other in Star Wars, but I think there's a very interesting dynamic for Shin to maybe ask some questions about all the things that she's also being thrown into. She's a pretty young woman as well. Like we don't know anything about her. We at least know some things about Balin. We have zero clue about who Shin is, where she came from, why she got picked up by Balin. Like there are a lot of things we can develop here, and maybe her learning a bit from Sabine about who Thrawn really is, the whole crew of villains, this whole hierarchy of villains, kind of like using her as a new knowledge base will be pretty interesting. And I'm sure a will be very different than a Shin reacting to some of the things that Sabine will know and understand and say, because Morgan is like the cultist, the devotee, being someone who sees Thrawn as a deity that she's going to be rewarded by. Shin and Balin have different opinions of him, and they have different opinions from each other of who Thrawn is. Because frankly, they don't. I don't think Shin really knows the same way Balin knows, and I'm not even sure how much Balin knows. So I'm very excited to see that dynamic be fostered. It seems like when you have two young actors, you want to pair them together and let them have some cool dynamics before going back to someone that essentially in Ezra is going to be totally fresh and new, even more so than Sabine was for this show for a lot of people. We already saw like the hyperspace rings lighting up, and that was such a cool but simple, design to make it feel like the power that's surging in, and obviously the wake of Hera and the Phoenix Squadron being like half decimated, half like evasive maneuvers. So I really want to see them build up more and more the people on that ship, and just maybe also like explore what does it mean like to be on a ring ship flying this far. Like, is hyperspace look different compared to what we've seen from the original trilogy onwards? What does it all mean? I really want them to explore that, and I don't think they really need a lot of time. 10 minutes. That's all I really ask. Just to at least start planting the seeds of a lot of these new relationships that Sabine has, you know, forced herself into, but also that Balin has ensured she'll have some protection in. So how all these characters react to her too will be a little bit more complicated, but also mature. I think there's a real strong opportunity for villains in Star Wars to have some real grounds to their values, their beliefs, their ultimate victories happening. And I want to see how Sabine not only contradicts that, pushes back against that, but also in some ways supports it by taking all these actions that she has so far. From there, I don't know. I think again, I beg that we see Thrawn. I could almost even hold off on Ezra until an episode 7 at this point. I wouldn't mind it honestly. I just think that that reunion has to feel so dramatic and almost off-putting for Sabine because she's had so many years of building up this guy, over 10 years of building up this teenage punk that she knew that she saw had a crush on her and grew into like this younger brother dynamic. But now the only family left for her. That's her reason for being on this path, for betraying Ahsoka, for possibly having a good reason to betray Ahsoka, even if ultimately the ends don't justify the means here, right? I don't know. So, do we see that dynamic instantly be started up, even if it feels different? Still feel like, hey, these are two people who love and care for each other, or is it going to be messy? Um, Maybe. I feel like it'd be more interesting for Sabine to still regain her spot as this co-lead. Ahsoka just dominated that whole last episode of episode 5 because rightfully so. This is her show. But in some ways, I almost feel like Hera and Anakin with Hayden and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, they almost stole away some of the thunder that I felt about Natasha's performance so far, which I think has been really great. So this is a chance for her to really be our eyes for this whole episode. It's a chance for us to see Thrawn, like I mentioned in the last predictions, to really like spend some time and give the true reality of his situation, what he'll say to her about why he's here, why he hasn't returned, if he's even been able to return. Some things like you mentioned, like Sheila and all that. But let this journey actually be explored, and then let us still have some time with his first interactions with everyone. A little bit of, an Ezra, but a lot more of a Thrawn.
We will see Sabine a lot next episode. I think while episode 5 was an Ahsoka episode, and this show has skewed a bit more Sabine than Ahsoka until episode 5, I think Sabine reclaims a lot of spotlight here in episode 6 with a pretty strong first half of the episode all devoted to her. I think we are going to see the conversations on the ship, but I think most of them are between Balin and Sabine. I think we get more. I mean, I want more of Balin. I want more of Balin than any other character in this cast right now because Ray Stevenson is so dang good, and we know we're not going to see him again, unfortunately, as Balin after the show. So I could just eat up every single Balin scene we get, and I would love to see him talk philosophy with Sabine. I would also love to see him talk philosophy with Morgan. I'd love to see him talk philosophy with Thrawn. I would like to see a bit more of his manipulation with Sabine. We do know Sabine was a prisoner on their ship, anyways, so she's handcuffed on the bridge. Maybe she's in a cell, and we get Balin coming to visit her and discussing things with her. Then we get kind of the bad cop with Shin coming in secretly and kind of drilling her and being like, why do people care about you? Why are you so special? You don't have the Force. That's kind of Shin's perspective, and I would like to see her push at Sabine a bit more and have that little dark side rivalry, even though I don't think Sabine, with her not really having a connection to the Force, I don't think she's going to turn to the dark side. I think she's doing this out of desperation for her friend and for what remains of her family. So we'll start there, and I do think we move from there into finding Thrawn. I personally would love to see them find Thrawn in the first half of this episode. I'm guessing it's probably the latter half. I think there will be complications. I think they'll get to this galaxy and kind of be like, okay, we're here. The map led us to the point that the migration patterns for the Purrgil usually happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean, and then they're in a whole new galaxy. It doesn't mean that Thrawn's just going to be sitting there waiting, right? The first place they show up. So I think we're going to see some weird extraterrestrial threats, some creatures and some aliens that we've never seen before in Star Wars, maybe things that are referenced in the Ascendancy trilogy or other Legends material for things that exist in the unknown regions or outside of our space. Filoni loves to pull designs, especially ship and creature designs from Legends, so I could see a lot of that being played here. I really hope he doesn't use like a Yuzan Vong design just as a callback. I could see him doing that, but I think that would be a missed opportunity because I think they should try to combine the elements of what the Grisks are in Zahn's novels with what makes the Vong really, really cool in New Jedi Order to make kind of the perfect enemy for Thrawn. So I don't necessarily see us getting in direct conflict with the Grisks or any other type of force in this episode. If we do, it's briefly and it's kind of like what was that? What did we just see? But I think there's gonna be kind of a new manhunt for Thrawn. I don't know if necessarily he's just gonna be right there. And maybe he has a beacon active or something that they can only track once they get there from the Chimera. I mean, rewatching the finale of Rebels as well, a bunch of ships were taken with Thrawn. It wasn't just the Chimera. There were a bunch of Purrgil attacking and taking other ships as well. I mean, it's kind of almost hinted at that Pelion possibly was in one of those, but we see him in known space. So then, like, does he? I don't think he actually gets taken. But anyway, there should be a lot of wreckage and stuff, at least in the migratory pattern of where the Purrgil go. So there should be we see the remains of the Chimera. We do a little investigation in that way. I think there's a build up to the discovery of Thrawn. Even though hyperspace works differently depending on the story and depending on the convenience of like when characters need to show up, at least a day has passed since Ahsoka follows Sabine and the rest of the Ion crew. So I don't see like any story that exists with Ahsoka being the main character in next episode where she doesn't show up like and they've already found Thrawn or they've already been on a mission. Like if we start with Ahsoka next episode, it's gonna either be conversation with Hu Yang in the Purgil's mouth or them arriving, flying out and be like, where are they? How do we find them? And then cut to Thrawn and the rest of the characters. So there's gonna be an interesting line there to see how much we cross over with Ahsoka. I personally don't think it'll be too much until towards the second half of the episode, maybe even towards the end of the episode. That could be when we get an Ezra reveal, although I think Ezra's going to be saved for close to the finale. But those are my thoughts on Thrawn in general. I really do think next episode is it. I said it in the live stream. We've been saying that literally every episode that like next one could be it. I think really the only times didn't think the next one could be it was after episode 3. I think we were like, okay, next episode's not going to have Thrawn, but maybe the following one will. Well, 5 didn't, so now 6 is our best opportunity. Let's talk about some of the other storylines, though, because the New Republic is actually quite a big storyline in this episode, and there are a lot of developments, not just with Hera and Carson and the other X-Wing pilots helping out to save Ahsoka with Jason, but there's a lingering arc that's left over from this episode about Hera getting arrested and Carson Teva possibly getting stripped of his command. All of these things that like already embroil us in the New Republic politics. If we don't see Ahsoka having a big role in next episode, so give me some of your thoughts on, do you think we get back to Hera in the next episode? Or do you think we stick with Ahsoka for the good guy storyline?
Well, I mean, we took last week's predictions and said, oh, yeah, this is all Sabine and her perspective on the journey before they make it the new galaxy. Obviously, I was definitely leaning way more into that direction, but that just didn't happen, right? What we got was Hera literally dealing with the wake of the Eye of Sign, right? Not just the how her ships handled it and her squadron. People forget she has to now pay for the consequences of an unsanctioned mission where 2 of her pilots are dead, right? Uh, they are willing to taking that risk. I'm sure whatever she told them, they were like, okay, Commander, crazy story. Like just the way Carson reacts with Paul Sun Hyung League, like he's like, oh, okay, yeah, Kanan is Jason's father. I don't know who that is, but I guess he was a Jedi. Like they accept, especially around the Ghost crew and the Phoenix cell as a whole, they had a lot more of like connection to mythical warriors, both Force and non-Force users, and some like interesting long-term like lineages of the galaxy, right? So where a Hera comes into that picture is that she's always been like the grounding force of rebels, bringing us into the politics of the rebellion, being the forward-facing front, where her crew would be bickering behind her. She'd be like, "We'll do this mission because it helps us out here, but we still have our values." Yada yada yada. She followed those values, but now there are some serious consequences. She definitely has to pay for that. She was told by Mon Mothma, which again, great to see Genevieve O'Reilly, even for a smaller hologram. But she was like, "Okay, where's your proof for Morgan about this plan? Thrawn, anything?" She's trying to help. She knows that to a degree, just like in Legends, Leia has helped out Hera, helped out her people because she trusts in someone who's been around Jedi, trust someone who's been such a significant player in the rebellion to do the right thing. Now that cover is gone. So Hera has her hands in a bit of a mess because her own actions have caused grave harm. But as we've seen in all this New Republic content that we've seen from all the way back to the Aftermath trilogy, the New Republic isn't failing, but in some ways it feels a way worse of a situation than the end of the Last Republic. The Last Republic, you can say like it was almost inevitable, and it was a guy manipulating all these things behind the scenes. Even if Palpatine, through the Sith Eternal, whatever, is having some consequence on the galaxy, his priority at this point is probably like, please don't let this clone body die. They're all dying like every like 2 years or something. I can't handle it, or like it's such a painful procedure or something. He's got his own things going on, which really means that the New Republic problems are the problems of the average common man. That's why the episode in Mando season 3, episode 3 works for me. We got to see Imperials who are rehabbed, but they're not actually. There's some people who are still working for Gideon. There's some people who believe that their work is actually valuable because it is, but the New Republic's like, that's not really something we want to deal with, right? There's people who will see benefits of the Empire and they'll see what the New Republic is doing with their fleet and all that as a reminder of the worst things and not focusing on the better things. So something that Hera has done as a military leader of a defense fleet, not a like an armed militia that's striking out at planets, a defense fleet, as big as it is, it's more for show and parade. It's not meant to be used at a whim, even if she is a general. So yeah, I would love for her to appear. I'm also quite happy with her story just being ended here. I think we had a lot of nice introduction for a little bit more of her backstory. She had a nice moment with Hu Yang and Jason. Obviously, her dynamic with him was great. But I think the more time we spend with her also means that we're more compelled to spend time with him. And I feel like that might take away from some of the New Republic story. Going to Coruscant would be wonderful. I just don't think it's necessary. I'm fine with, hearing about things and seeing her return more in the finale episode or the end of episode 7. I think 6, we should truly just throw ourselves into this new galaxy, this new beyond. Star Wars is about to embark on a journey that it did in books to a degree, but our people were not going to that galaxy. People from a different galaxy were coming into Star Wars. The Rishi Maze, all these other things, people have
Right.
come to the largest Star Wars galaxy. They have never gone to a different place. So it's my focus. It's why I don't think Hera, despite how intriguing her role in the New Republic is, how intriguing the politics and just the common man, the low level stuff of the New Republic and its failings in so many people's eyes has been, and all the auxiliary material from Aftermath to Bloodline. I just I want us to focus on Ahsoka. I want us to focus on Sabine once again. And Hera's in a different galaxy now. It's just a fact. She's stayed behind, so I think the story, to a degree, also has to stay behind, at least for one episode.
I tend to agree that next episode, I don't know if it's the place to dive into the New Republic storyline, and that's personally because I see Thrawn returning to our galaxy at the end of the season as kind of the connective tissue that will lead into the film. I think whatever plight Thrawn is dealing with in this other galaxy, he has to come back to our galaxy to either bolster his forces or to really make a return to actually help his people. I mean, again, we don't know where Chila is in response to this new galaxy, right? This new galaxy might just be completely away from anything Thrawn has ever dealt with. He might be in exile for 10 years and have no connection to Chila, no connection to the Empire, and this is the way he is saved. I think the way he's trying to bring himself back into the fold of two different war fronts, two different loyalties, his split loyalties, are is by coming and trying to defeat the New Republic, regain control of the Empire now that he is top in command. He doesn't even have to deal with the politics of dealing with Palpatine. So by removing that barrier, if he's like the guy, if he literally is the heir to the Empire, that could be pretty enticing to him to bolster his forces to make his way back to Chila and fight off the Grisk threat. So I think what we're going to see here is the New Republic stripping Hera of her rank. I do think we're going to get that because Hera has not appeared in any Star Wars material post Ahsoka. So right now, before Ahsoka, the latest material she had been in were the Alphabet Squadron books. Now we have her in Ahsoka. We don't know where she is during the sequels. We don't know where she is in the years leading up between Ahsoka, which is 9 ABY, all the way to The Force Awakens, which is 34 ABY. So we have a lot of time to deal with her story. And I think the way Filoni is going to deal with these characters, a lot of them, is by sending them off somewhere that doesn't have any real connection back to our galaxy. So I think when we get back to the New Republic storyline, we are going to see a lot more of these idiotic decisions continue to unfold. We're going to see somebody like Senator Ziono stripping Hera of her rank. There's a mixed reaction here from the New Republic, and it's one of the reasons the New Republic kind of fails in Legends and it's also one of the reasons it's going to fail in canon, is that they try to unify very quickly. They don't try to really put the Empire back in their place. They want to make and show everybody this is a welcoming place. This is a place where you can be accepted. It doesn't matter your past. And we already see that here in the second episode with the Imperials who are still working for the Empire, still working for Thrawn, right under the noses of the New Republic shipyards in Corellia. It's not really theirs. And I think Hera's the backstabbing of Hera by the New Republic will be something that allows all of us to kind of look at the New Republic from a new angle and be like, they really brought this on themselves because they were too into playing the political game. They were too stupid to see the threats that were right on their doorstep. And ultimately, that is the tragedy of the First Order in The Force Awakens, is that they didn't see it coming. But Leia, Hera, characters like that warned them so many times, this is coming, and they didn't listen to anyone. So I think we're going to see that initial onset here with Hera. I think it is when we could see Leia actually in the show. I don't know if it's going to be this episode, but Leia was fighting for Hera in the Senate. In this last episode, we hear a reference to it from Carson Teva. So she could appear. There's a lot of things that could go on with the New Republic storyline. And I personally don't really want to see it continue next episode. I think it's set up to be a bigger part of the show than necessarily we were expecting or wanting. This is, again, a New Republic era story. And right now, the New Republic is kind of the only thing that's connecting The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and the literally titled New Republic film that is going to finish off all of these stories. So I think really getting into the demise and initial fall of the New Republic is only going to work if we continue to establish characters that are important within the New Republic. Somebody who's important in the ground level military like Carson Teva, somebody who's important in the higher up like Hera, and we're already attached to Mon Mothma from Andor. So right now they've done a lot of the groundwork to build up the cracks in the infrastructure. And when you have ex-Imperials like possibly Senator Ziono, people who just kind of are there. They're career politicians. They didn't fight the Empire when it took charge. They didn't fight the New Republic when it took charge. They're just there to do their job and make their money and maybe try to get what's best for the people. Star Wars has always been very cynical on politicians, and for the most part, none of them in Star Wars really do what's best for their people. The ones that do are the outliers like Padme or Bail or Mon Mothma. So I think this is a really intriguing storyline and one that is going to be really frustrating for a lot of us, but also it's going to play out in a way that I think makes the story of Hera Syndulla and a lot of the rebels and kind of the echoing theme of the sequels that eventually turns in The Last Jedi from being called the Resistance to reigniting the rebellion. When Luke says the rebellion is reborn today, we see that echoed in The Rise of Skywalker. I think we're already starting to see it with the literal characters from the show literally called rebels being the first ones who are on the stepping stones towards making the New Republic into possibly the resistance force that Leia eventually starts, and ultimately kind of this tragic forewarning of all these voices that are telling you, hey, this is happening and nobody is listening. And I think that's kind of the goal of what Filoni's trying to do with this storyline. I could see it being actually a part of next episode, but I really don't really want it to. Like, I would love the next episode to be the threat, 7 and 8. How do we clean up the threat? I think that would be the best way to do it. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure, again, if you haven't liked the video, help us get to 40 likes. That will really help us out. And subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 2,000 subs. You definitely want to subscribe so you get all of this great content immediately when it comes out. Check us out again next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern for the live stream and live Q&A of Ahsoka Episode 6. We'll talk all about the new episode there. Also, check out our Patreon and YouTube memberships. We have some great programs for all of you. If you would like to contribute and help support this channel financially, we would greatly appreciate any support you could show us. And we have a lot of fun perks that we think you'll really enjoy if you check out those tiers. So give it a check just to see if you might be interested. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.